wildest thing that's ever happened in my life. It was literally the most spiritual experience and feeling I've ever felt. After I said those two prayers, when I should have felt anger and fear and resentment, my heart literally, all those feelings left my heart filled with love and peace. And it wasn't because everything was okay, because clearly it was not, but I was okay.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. How do you transform a life-altering tragedy into a blueprint for resilience? Today, we're diving into the remarkable journey of Dean Otto, whose story proves that belief can literally bend reality. When a devastating bike accident left Dean paralyzed from the waist down, he faced a choice that would define everything: surrender to the 2% odds or activate a belief system powerful enough to defy them. What followed was extraordinary, not just his recovery, but the unlikely bonds he formed with the man who hit him and the surgeon who helped him walk again. Join us as we explore how Dean transformed personal trauma into professional purpose, proving that if your belief is strong enough, the odds don't stand a chance.
Dean, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Michael, Tanya, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be with you all today. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh yeah, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
This is right up our alley, and what the show is all about. So it was September, if I remember right, 2016, that changed everything for you. Do you want to take us to that moment and sort of bring us to what it is that you're challenged with today, and how that is factored into the great things?
Oh my gosh, Michael, I don't know that we have enough time for all that, but I'll do the best I can. So, I've been over in London, and I was over there on business back in September of 2016, and I ran a half marathon when I was over there to raise some money for Alzheimer's patients. My mother passed away from Alzheimer's. The only way I could get in the race was to do that, and I wanted to help out anyway, so it was like a perfect match. So I ran the race, but I pulled my hamstring, aggravating an old injury from the 2015 New York City Marathon. My coach said, you can't run for about a month. You got to be on your bike. She kind of goaded me into buying a bike several months ago to cross train on. And I ended up on a bike on a Saturday morning. And I was riding on my way to do a quick 1 hour loop. And out of nowhere, got hit by an F-150 truck from behind. And it shot me about 100 feet in the air. I landed on my head, my face, my arms, my leg, and laid there in the middle of the street paralyzed. And, prior to that, about 7 years before that, I had actually gotten sober. So I'd been through treatment. I went through a 12-step program, and I was a practicing member. And I knew in that moment that, number one, I had no control over this, that there was a much bigger plan out there for me, and I needed to surrender to that plan. And then number two, I couldn't have a resentment, because a resentment could lead to a drink, and a drink could kill me. So I instinctively, because I honestly think that we always default to our training, good or bad. You're whether you're at work or you're at home or whatever, you're going to do what you're training to do. And so I said a prayer to accept everything as life on life's terms and God's plan for me. And then I turned that over to him. And then I said a prayer of forgiveness for the gentleman that just hit me, that I'd never met before. And, it was one of the wildest thing that's ever happened in my life. It was literally the most spiritual experience and feeling I've ever felt. After I said those two prayers, when I should have felt anger and fear and resentment, my heart literally, all those feelings left my heart filled with love and peace. And it wasn't because everything was okay, because clearly it was not, but I was okay. And I knew whatever was going to happen, and, from then on was part of the plan. And I just needed to do my part, which was to show up, do the best that I could, let somebody else something else a lot stronger than I am take charge of things, and then just do the work. And that's what I did. And, honestly, the doctors really didn't tell me how bad it was until a few days, even a few weeks later. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know that I had a 2% chance only a 2% chance to walk again. I mean, let's face it, the guy wanted to give me some hope, right? But he had already prepared my wife and my family for a life with me in a wheelchair. And
wow,
lo and behold, a few days after that accident, I was able to move my right big toe about 1 millimeter, which gave us a little bit of hope that I could have a positive outcome. And that started the whole thing. And, I worked really hard. I recovered 2 days in ICU, and they kicked me out because I was doing so well. Then I was 4 days in the hospital, and they kicked me out because I was doing so well. Then they put me in the rehab facility, a residential rehab facility right next to the hospital, and tried to kick me out after a week because I was doing so well. But the president of the hospital called the insurance company and said, this guy's a miracle. Unless you just want to take care of him for the rest of your life, maybe you ought to invest in another week with him being here with us, because we've never seen anything like this before. It's miraculous. So that's what I did. And that started the journey. But it really started with forgiveness. It started with, now granted, I was probably under the influence of a little bit of pain medication, but I challenged the doctor to run that half marathon with me, literally like from my hospital bed. And he didn't know me from Adam. He, allowed himself to be vulnerable, which is incredible, because most of the time those guys, neurosurgeons are delivering bad news about 99% of the time.
Right.
So there has to be this sort of, wall between them, and this emotional wall between them and their patients. But we were able to pierce that. And he saw himself in the recovery room and in the hospital room. He saw his family in my family, and then immediately, he let his guard down. And so we got the hook set on him. And about 8 days after my accident, the guy that was driving the truck, Will Huffman, also a good friend of mine now, he sought me out through Facebook, through my coach, Kelly Filna, who's a world-class triathlete and coaches about 200 athletes around the world. And she called my wife and said, hey, this kid wants to apologize to Dean. Will he talk to him? And, at first, I'll be honest, it was a little weird for me to like, look, I've already forgiven this guy. I don't think I need to talk to him, but thank goodness my wife talked a little bit of sense into me. And she was like, Dean, look, this kid, he doesn't need to carry this around. You need to let's bring him in. So not only did we bring him in and he apologized, and, I obviously forgive him because I've already forgiven him. But we became friends, and, I ended up asking him to run this race with me. And he did it just because that's who he is. He didn't have to be part of this story, but he did. And, we didn't do this to become celebrities. We did this to give back. I mean, I felt an obligation to give back after the outcome that I was blessed with. So how can I then help other folks that weren't blessed with my outcome? And I came up with this idea of running a half marathon and using the publicity to raise funds. So that's what we did. And, I made this miraculous comeback 1 year to the date after the accident. We ran that half marathon out in Napa Valley. Our story over the course of about 3 or 4 months ended up going viral one day. Literally one day, I'm in a cab in New York on the way to our office in Manhattan, and my phone just starts blowing up. And it's the Ellen Show, the Today Show, the 700 Club, the New York Post, the Runner's World, you name it, all the local people. It was crazy. And what had happened is the lady in Charlotte that did the first story on me, Michelle Bowden, she's with the NBC affiliate here, and she posted it online. And then she was also a freelancer for people.com. And within 24 hours, the thing had gotten a couple million hits. And that's kind of what started the firestorm. So,
wow.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, it's great, man. We need the background for all of that. Man, there's, in our show, there's always 1,000 ways we could go with the direction. In keeping it, is that why you wrote the book right after that? The 2% chance, a journey of resilience, recovery, and rebirth. Is that book all about what you guys have been through, especially what you have been through in this situation? It
is. I go and Tanya, It's kind of a memoir, if you will, because it talks a little bit, because I think it's important to give some perspective to the reader about my background and where I came from. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. Drinking was part of the culture there. I mean, I can remember going to parties when I was a kid. I don't know if it was like this in Georgia, where y'all from, or in Ohio, where you're from, but booze was just out. I mean, parents had it at houses. Like we'd have keg parties. They'd make sangria. It was just like, Louisville's Derby City, right? It's a party town. So that's the culture that I grew up in. And all that seemed normal to me. And drinking was just part of everything that we did. And so I talk about, that's how I was brought up. And then I talk about my experience, in college and how the drinking escalated. But my problem was I was falling up the escalator. So I was continuing to drink, and my drinking was continuing to scale, but I kept getting promoted. I kept getting the next best job. I was getting moving careers and doing great. And it wasn't until, a fateful night one night where I'd passed out drunk outside on the patio, and I woke up the next morning and literally cooked breakfast for my family. I went for a run, and I came back, and my driveway was full of cars. And so I got back to the driveway, and they had a full intervention on me, and that started my path to recovery. And it wasn't just the recovery from alcoholism. Honestly, that's kind of the smallest part of it. For me, it was really more of a spiritual awakening, understanding like what had happened before, understanding the power and the gravity of that, and then changing like what was important in my life. So instead of being so selfish and self-centered and full of self-will, I started thinking about other people more and being just a better person. So I've always, from that point on, it's just kind of been part of my, who I am. So that, I don't know, that gives you some perspective on the book, but I didn't write the book until probably 3 or 4 years later. I didn't really want to gravy train this thing. I didn't even want to do any of this stuff, but people goaded me into it. They're like, look, you've got to capture this. The world's got to hear this story. This is unbelievable how you handle it. I'm just like, look, anybody would have done the same thing. I just did like what I thought was the right thing to do. And that's what I did. And so I wrote the book and was so busy at work, I didn't really have any time to promote it. But it wasn't until May 31st of last year where my perspective really changed. So I'm at home getting ready to have dinner with one of my best friends and his wife and my wife. And I have 3 back-to-back seizures sitting at the dinner table. And
Ooh.
I fall, I fall to the ground. Ambulance comes. I go to the hospital. They run all these tests on me. And it turns out, I don't have any seizures in my family, no background of it at all, but I've been working really hard. I was stressed out. I was probably dehydrated because I did a hard workout before my buddy got there. And I've also got a runner's heart. So brain could get tricked into taking a beat off. So my resting heart rate's only like 42. If it takes a beat off, it's 21. That puts you on the ground. Mm-hmm. And that was the final wake up call. I knew 8 days after the accident, when something happened in the hospital, that this is what I really wanted to do, but I just couldn't do it because I had kids that were college age and I had to get them through school. But that was the final nail in the coffin. I left a job at the favorite company I've ever worked at with the most amazing people you could possibly work with and work for. Number one in my company. I just had the best year I'd ever had. But it just wasn't filling my cup anymore. And I was like, I really want to go share this story, not just the book, but to tell this story to people and try to make an impact on them and try to help them in their lives and their struggles like I was able to help myself.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
I tell you, what's interesting, Dean, is the trajectory, right? So what most of us would deem to be a failure in some part of our life, a certain, small part of our life would be maybe the addiction or the to alcohol. And we look at that, okay, well, maybe that's a huge failure, but look what it brought you. It brought you, and when you started telling your story and you said, while I was there on the ground, I said these 2 prayers. And I thought to myself, okay, well, what prompted that, right? And it
Right.
had to be sort of that, what you deemed to be a failure that brought you right where God wanted you to be at some point. Tell me what prompted in your mind, I'm going to stop right now, not even think about everything happening around me, and say these two prayers. I want you to take me back to that moment.
Again, we default to our training. I learned early on in my 12-step program that, I'm not in charge of, I'm not in the outcome business. I'm in the effort business. So if I show up, if I do what's supposed to be done to the best of my ability, and I do it to help people, that, God's going to take care of the rest of it. And so I'm not in the outcome business. And I'm powerless over that. I mean, I'm powerless over my addiction, but I'm really powerless over everything at the end of the day. But I also knew that, in that moment, that they told me, "Oh my gosh, if you carry these resentments around, you're going to drink." I'm like, "Well, hell, I can't do that. I've just 7 years ago, I've gotten this far. I'm not going to let that happen." So I just did what I was trained to do. There's no bright shining light about it. The bright shining light came after I did it. And then, it was literally it is the most spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. It was a feeling I can't describe other than just love and peace.
I got to say how much I love this, because, one of the things that we have discovered and over all of the years of building brands for people, we're in the personal branding business. I learned it from Tanya. Tanya's taught me over the years, her 30 years experience in it. And one of the things that we love the most about what we do is how whether people realize they do this, or more like you, they've already realized it before they ever get to us, type of a thing, is
Right.
how if we look back upon our life and our life experiences and the things that have happened. And I like, especially through the lens you're speaking of, and I love how you said it. I'm not in the outcome business. I'm in the effort business. To me, that's the greatest thing that we do. And even in my own life, I look back at things, even down to car accidents that I've been in, where I can look back and I'd be like, 4 red lights ago, I run under a yellow light and had a decision to stop or to just keep going. And I made the decision to keep going. And then now 8 miles down the road, I'm in this accident, and there's got to be a reason why. Yeah, because I've always looked at things like that because of tying those things in together. Right. And I love I love where you go with that. And because if you had not allowed alcoholism, or whatever, however, alcoholism had dominated your life to the point that your family was now there saying, "Hey, we got to do something about this," set you on this trajectory for that. Right. And then now you're in this situation, defaulting to that very training that you're talking about. And then forward from there, how profound that has become. Starting with not only the doctor, but also with the young man that hit you, and without knowing the circumstances behind that, it had to be horrific for him. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I've hit a human.
He had the toughest job, Michael, for sure. I mean, looking back on it, there's 4 people involved in this story. And in my book, I open the book by telling the story from all 4 different perspectives: mine, the doctor's, the Will's, the truck driver, and then my wife's. And I was thinking, the worst, the person with the worst possible scenario was him, the driver, for sure, because he's got all that guilt and remorse, and I can't imagine living with that kind of guilt or pain about hitting another human being. Then it's probably my wife, because she's got this man that she's been married to for the time, 28 years or whatever it was, if I do the math. I'm going to have to take care of him the rest of my life. My life just changed completely. And how are we going to manage financially? How am I going to manage? It's going to change everybody's life. Right. And then the third, toughest job is probably the doctor, because he's got literally 90 minutes to do a 4-hour surgery. Okay. I mean, he's a professional. I know he's the best neurosurgeon that could ever do this. He's on call one Saturday a year. He's on call that Saturday. There's 7 sequential miracles that all happened on this day. But he's able to do that because it took 90 minutes to get me to the hospital and through triage, right? So I didn't get in his hands until there was 90 minutes left to do the 4-hour surgery. Luckily, he's not human. I mean, I don't know what he is, but he's got a photographic memory. They didn't have to take pictures where all the screws went. He knew where all that could do. He was able to cut a lot of time off the surgery and get it done in time for me to have a chance. And then, I mean, I didn't know what the heck hit me. I had the easiest job. I mean, I just had to, giddy up and do the best I can, like God have it, and then do what they told me to do. And that's what I did. So.
And how long before you actually got back up on your feet and began to learn to walk again?
So it was about 72 hours, believe it or not. I'd gotten out of ICU, and I think it was my first or second day in the regular hospital, and they came in. They're like, "All right, we're going to get you up." I'm like, "What, are you kidding me?" I'm like, they're like, "We're going to see what you can do." I mean, I was able to move my toe about that far, and so they put a walker next to the bed, and I got up on the walker, and I took like the 2 most excruciating steps I've ever taken in my life to the bathroom. Literally 2 steps, 1, 2. That's it, and that was the first day. The second day I made the door. The third day I made it down the hall. The fourth day they kicked me out and kicked me down to rehab. So,
wow,
fast healer on that one, I guess.
Oh my goodness.
And so now fast forward a little bit, so you've got a keynote also, Finish the Ride.
Right.
Is that keynote tied to this? Is it, how do you parlay this in what you're achieving here to the mass public to bring them this?
Right. So
in a professional setting, Dean.
Yeah.
Right. So my story has 3 pillars. It's your belief is strong enough, the odds don't matter. That's sort of the tagline of it, but it's really about courage, conditioning, and commitment. So the courage for me was, I had to stop drinking, or else I was probably going to die. And I had to have the courage to take that first step. For, other folks, it's the courage to show up for work in tough conditions. It's for the sales guy to make that first cold call or get out of his car or to fire an employee or like whatever it is. It's like, you got to have courage to do that. And then conditioning, like, I think that it's very important for all of us. If we're going to be able to be of maximum service to ourselves, our family, and our friends and our work, we need to be working on 4 things all the time: conditioning. And that's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So physical conditioning is super important because guess what? If I'm not in the kind of shape that I was in, no chance I have the recovery I have. I mean, I had just run a half marathon 6 days before. I'd, been running quite a bit for the last 10 years or so. I'm in great condition. I need my head clear and my body strong all the time, because you never know when you're going to get hit by a truck. It happened to me, right? Then it's the mental part. So what are you doing to stay intellectually curious, to keep your act sharp, and if you're at your best for your coworkers and your family? So I was actually, believe it or not, it was the last week of the quarter. I closed 2 deals from my hospital bed because I was intellectually focused on the task at hand. Then the 2, I think probably these are super important. So the third one is emotional conditioning. And I think about community when I think about emotional fitness. So how many different communities are you building in your life? They're going to be there for you when you get hit by a truck or something gets bad. And on the other side of that, within that community, how are you going to serve those folks and help those folks when they really need you? I mean, y'all, people came out of the woodwork for me when I had my accident. It was like going to my own funeral. I had people filling my freezer full of food. They were coming over and mowing my grass, cleaning out my garage, taking the garbage cans down. It was incredible. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And that's because I invested over my now 60 years, at the time, 52 years, different communities, and it came back to me, and I've served those communities as well. But then I get to the most important one, and that's the spiritual conditioning. And I just had no clue about any of that before, I took my sobriety journey. And I don't think anything happens in God's world by mistake. I jokingly say a lot of times that I think God got me drunk so God could get me sober so I could find God, honestly.
I can see that.
I love that.
I can
Imagine that. So I need to be doing something every day: prayer, meditation, readings, reaching out to people that might need my help. I need to stay spiritually connected all the time, because again, you never know when you're really going to need God. We need him all the time, but sometimes you get painted into a corner and you have nowhere else to go, and you got to have some place to go. So when I'm in when I'm fit in all those areas, I don't argue. I'm not raising my voice. I don't get mad when the dishes are like in the sink, or, somebody left something open that should have been closed. None of those little things bother me. But when I'm not, then I can get off kilter pretty quickly. So those are the 4 things that I'm always trying to work on. And then of course there's the commitment. And we saw, a doctor that didn't know me from Adam. We saw a kid that didn't know me that actually had a heart condition. I mean, Will had a heart condition and didn't tell us about it. And he shows up and he runs that race with us. And
wow.
At the end of the race, we crossed the finish line and he wasn't with us. So we panic, we go back and get him. And we walk about halfway back the last half mile, and then everybody starts seeing us and everybody's clapping and everybody's excited because the press is there and everybody's, cheering us on. And the commitment there was you got to finish this together. I mean,
yeah.
If you're in a leadership role, you got to make sure you're bringing your people with you. And
right.
So we needed to make sure we were bringing our people with us on that. And then people that are in business need to make sure that they're reaching back and not leaving anybody by themselves, that they're bringing their people to finish whatever task it is at hand.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, these are so great, Dean, in so many different ways. And your message, I encourage you. Your message is awesome. And with the direction that it will go and the people that it can affect is amazing. Because I if I had to sum up one thing, we live in a crazy time, and Paul Harvey used to say, in times like these, it's always good to remember there's always been times like these. And I like that. I pull our strength from that. But we live in a pretty nutty time frame. And I can say that one of the biggest takeaways, which we want to go over a couple of these for the audience, but one of the biggest takeaways for me is that forgiveness model. You're laying there in pain, maybe barely conscious for, maybe, and then out, God knows that with that kind of extent of that kind of injury, right. I can't imagine it. I've laid on concrete before like that, for motorcycle lay downs and stuff like that. But thank God I never was harmed more than just some road rash and stuff. But I mean, that the ground doesn't give, that asphalt doesn't give anything. And so I can imagine, but you got a presence of mind, to forgive this human being you ain't even seen yet, and then hold that forgiveness. And if I had to say there's anything that this world could stand a whole lot of, is that right there.
Amen, brother.
We may usher in the world being a much better place if we all could do that, because a lot of times we have perceived grievances that we shouldn't hold on to. And you had a grievance that you forgave right off the bat. Whoever this was, I'm sure they didn't mean to do it type of thing, is amazing outlook.
And then we have a few more takeaways, and we're going to come back to you with one final question, Dean.
Okay.
So takeaway number 2, not in the outcome business, in the effort business.
Love that. That is awesome.
That might be one of my favorites ever.
Yeah.
I love that too.
And it's something I learned new. I mean, I know a little bit about the 12 steps. I know a little bit about that. We've all had family members that have been a part of that, and a great program, obviously, but I really like that. No resentment. I can't carry resentment right here, because resentment could lead to a drink. And I think that it could be expanded in a lot of ways. The resentment is never going to lead to anything positive, right? It's 100%. Definitely going to be harmful, especially to the person that holds the resentment. So I really love that.
You nailed it, Michael. It's like only person you're hurting is yourself. I mean, you're dragging, you're chained to that thing and just carrying it around with you all the time. And get rid of it. There's no reason for it. Everybody's going to be happier when you do.
Yep.
So true. And the final one for today is, in your own words, Dean Otto, if belief is strong enough, the odds don't matter.
Love that.
Never heard it said like that before, but I could not agree with it more. And so your final question for today is, how can the audience learn more about getting you in front of them for a keynote, about working with them on leadership? Take it away from here.
Sounds great. Appreciate it. So DeanOttoSpeaking.com is my website. I've got all the different assets there, my speaker reels there. I've got a one-pager there that has got dynamic links to all the different media and content that I've appeared. The same can be said for the different media and content. A lot of those things is also posted on the website. I can be reached at rdeanotto@gmail.com, and people can reach out to me there. My book, 2% Chance, is available on Amazon. So you just type in Dean Otto 2% Chance, and the link will be right there, and you can purchase it straight from Amazon.
Thank you so much, Dean. Your story is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. And I can see how your trajectory and the experiences you went through, it's kind of like you said, God got you drunk so he could get you sober, right? But he also took you through these experiences so you could be this light to so many people. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Michael. It's been my pleasure to be with you. I'm so grateful that you chose me to be a part of your message, and I could share mine with your audience.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.